Welcome back to Man Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear Danny. I shall see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today. We'll be using a blue and red Joy-Cons today. So, Joy-Con City. Joy-Con City? Joy-Con Drift City. Here we come. Tokyo Drift, How does that song go? Deja vu. I've been in this place before. Something like that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah, late night episode. Not really much of a particular reason, just is what it is, Sometimes you record a little bit late, sometimes you don't. But what should we talk about today? That's a good question. We could talk about the spelling word or thing, but hold on. Good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow, it's 10:58 p.m. on Thursday, February 1st, 2024. So happy 1st of February, I suppose, everyone. There's a YouTube channel. I can't remember what they're called. Hold on. We can find it now. Like, I've seen a couple of videos of them. One of them they had was like the Japanese web video. Like, why is Japanese web development so different, like, visually compared to in the West? And if you don't know what I mean, it's just basically a lot of Japanese websites, or a lot of E-Station websites in general, to be perfectly honest, look like Yahoo. Used to look like it. If you remember Yahoo back in the day, where basically it was just like links and links and links all like crammed into one page and that sort of thing, which from Western sensibilities, I'm sure, or like non-East Asian sensibilities, you'd be like, what the heck is going on? But it's actually, most people are used to it, myself included. I feel like I'm pretty used to just having pages like absolutely crammed them. I don't go on like these East Asian sites all that often, because I'm not like that fast at reading Chinese or Japanese, anything like that. So it's not exactly that beneficial. But certainly when it comes, I guess the most frequent time I do it would be if I'm like looking up stuff about like one of the games I play, which are obviously Japanese games. I tend to like go on both sides of that sort of thing. Actually, I was going to talk about that Answer in Progress, and basically with TLDR, so they made like a spelling sort of game, which I played a little bit, and it's actually quite fun. I'll be honest to say, and it's both educational at the same time. But now we're taking a detour into Japanese web development. Because it was actually a very interesting video in the first place, considering that there's someone who I don't believe at East Asian. I don't know necessarily their nationality or ethnicity, nor does it have to matter in that sort of sense. It just means that they might not have been raised with necessarily the same cultural context, which someone who is might have been. But it's a very fascinating video in the first place, where they basically sort of quantify exactly why the design elements, I suppose, of like different websites, and then like plotted them on this sort of like relevancy graph, relevancy chart. It's called Why Japan's Internet is Weirdly Designed. You should definitely go and watch it. I think it's a very interesting watch. And they sort of basically statistically prove to a sense that there is a tendency, I suppose, for East Asian sites to be designed in such a way. And then they come up with their own sort of theories as to why this is the case. And I think the prevailing theory, if I remember, it's been a while since I watched it, the prevailing theory that they had was basically because Western websites tend to be simplified a lot more from a UX standpoint, because of a transition from desktop, from mobile, from computers and laptops to the mobile world. Nowadays, mobile is almost certainly the most predominant platform people use to browse the internet, which is crazy to me, because I love using my computer. I love using a laptop far more than I prefer using my phone. The only thing I like to do on my phone is two things. It'd be like Twitter and Reddit, maybe. I guess Instagram as well, but I don't really use Instagram all that often, so it's not really like a fair comparison. But things where it's like bite-sized consummation of media tends to be my preference on the phone. But I hate like working on my phone, to be perfectly honest. Like sometimes I do it, like when I'm on like long train journeys or something like that. I will use my phone to like for example, when we did writing group, I would use it to like start writing out my story, or sometimes I'm plan some D&D stuff. I would use it as well, but I absolutely hate using my phone for it. Like I much prefer sitting down with a keyboard, like having a big screen and being able to look at it. I suppose maybe that's sort of like the programming side of me in my brain, which prefers it. I can't. It feels like the medium's a wrong medium for it, using my phone to actually do that sort of thing. But anyway, her prevailing theory is basically that because Japan or most of East Asia tended to be like much further ahead, I suppose, in the technology department when it came to that they already had their mobile revolution like before the website started making that big switch in the first place. So basically they had their mobile revolution before they had their internet sort of social media revolution in the first place. So while in the West they were sort of concurrent, so that Western social media sites designed their websites such that they fit a phone UX more than the East Asian ones, which already had their mobile phone revolution, and then people were just, I don't know, were used to it or something. I can't remember, stagnation through something like that, which was a very interesting idea. I think, you know, it's hard to necessarily come up with definitive answers for these sort of things. You can only really come up with theories, which are backed up by statistical proof, you know. I suppose therein lies the caveat of being like a scientist or something. Like even if you have all this empirical evidence, statistical like tests, etc., and you repeatable and reproducible, you can only go so far with the theories you come up with as to why it's the case. You know, you can prove that there is a trend, a relationship, but necessarily figuring out the causal effect of it is, you know, probably the difficult part. And sometimes you can only really speculate. I'm not saying that's always the case, mind you, and I'm not going to like throw dirt in the name, I suppose, of a scientific process. I think it's probably the best you can do, and literally the best you can do is just to test it and see, and try and run tests in such a way which would either prove or disprove your theory, right? So I think it's difficult to necessarily come up with a concrete answer, and I feel like that's a very fair assumption. But there's also very interesting, I feel like I spoke about this video before, I honestly can't remember because more recently I watched a video by Cynthia Joel called How Culture Made Japanese Internet Design Weird, which is basically a sort of response to the initial video, but actually filling in the important cultural context behind the cultural possible reasonings and motivations behind it in the first place, which the Answer in Progress person, to be fair, fully admitted that they were not necessarily privy to, because, you know, they could not read Chinese or Japanese or anything like that to really get answers, and also did not grow up in that culture. Fair enough. And I can't remember exactly their explanations as well, Cynthia Joel's explanation, her explanations, but it was something along the lines that people brought up on that language processed language differently, or something like that. Like they find, because the general broad strokes concept is the fact that Western UIs and websites are designed with a sense of showing you a hierarchy. You know, you have headers and then subheaders and then context underneath that, where things like hyperlinks are highlighted, etc. That there's a distinct hierarchy in the size, the typography, the font, the layout of the sites, to be like, this is where you look, and this is where you look if you're still interested, this is where you look if you're still interested, etc. So it's sort of like the website does the filtering for you for ranking what's needed or what's important to a potential reader. Like that's the general idea behind it. But the East Asian sites tend to not have that as much, because, you know, for whatever reason, like this was, I think, done in a study as well, that those who from East Asia, or I can't remember if it was like East Asian culture or the language or something, like what was necessarily the causal effect of it, were better at like sorting out a hierarchy without the hierarchical system of design elements in place, which is why you see a lot of these East Asian sites just tend to be like absolute word salads, I suppose, of what's going on, but just hyperlink, all of like equal importance, maybe sorted into different categories, but that's basically it. Like, I mean, you can see it yourself if you go to like the front page of like Baidu, if you go to the front page of Inven, is that the Korean one, the Korean version of Reddit? Inven, Korean site, inven.co.korea. If you go to Baidu, I can't remember what the Japanese one's called off the top of my head, to be perfectly honest. You can just see they're just like link with barely like any sort of variation, I suppose, in headers or anything like that. Like you have a headers, but then all of them are basically just ranked in a list underneath that. But everything probably feels very cluttered, I suppose, if you're not used to it. And you compare it to something like Instagram, which is super minimalist. You literally see like one post at a time as you scroll each time. And it's really quite a fascinating thing in the first place. It's not something I actually consciously thought about until I saw the video in the first place. So it's good that these videos exist. Like, obviously to stoke this discussion, to stoke this conversation, to make you think about these sort of things, because I'm sure for a lot of people it was probably just like, oh, they've never even seen like an East Asian website before, like they're not even aware of it, and like it's sort of just like a whole new world to them. But to me it's even stranger, I suppose, because I was aware of it, I have seen it, have used them in fact, but I just never even thought about the fact that, oh yeah, it absolutely is just something like that, you know. Why is it so different? Because I think subconsciously in my brain it was just sort of like, oh, it's because they've just liked the archaic form of website more, because the Western websites did used to look like this, at least when I was growing up. I remember, you know, things like Yahoo, as I said, like the Yahoo front page used to look like this, just like absolute, just like throwing everything at you at once, no sense of like visual hierarchy anymore. But then they like slowly gradually moved away from it. Like nowadays I don't even know what Yahoo's webpage looks like. Yeah, you got like the main thing at the top, and then you just have like articles upon articles, but each with like a catchy image and a catchy headliner. So it's like a distinct hierarchy to the text that goes on, rather than, you know, as I said in Invent, it was just literally link. Surprising lack of images, I suppose. I don't know. Like, you might be like, which one do you prefer? That's a good question, and I suppose it depends what I'm using them for. I think if it's something I'm knowledgeable about in the first place, I kind of prefer the East Asian style of just like dumping all the information that is possible, you know. If anything, I think it's kind of, I really didn't think about this until just now, kind of reflective of the fact that how I tend to organise things when I'm familiar with them. I tend to like try and put them all together like within very easily accessible things. Like, what I find most interesting, I suppose, is the way I describe it, is how me and my friends tend to organise, like, this is really specific, tend to organise our phones and like apps and shortcuts on our phones, because most of my friends basically, they do it like the way that you're probably very used to. You know, you'll have your apps and then you'll just have like pages of apps, and then you like they delete maybe shortcuts of ones that they don't necessarily use, but they'll just have pages which they flick through or something like that. Like, even basically they tend to not use folders or subfolders, or if I'm not sure if they do, it's more decluttering, if anything, which is fascinating, because for me, all my apps I basically have in a folder. And like, the way I describe it is, I have my home page, and I only have one home page. I hate having multiple pages on my phone, and basically along the side I have like 10 different folders where all of my apps fall into one of 10 different folders. So basically every single one of my apps, all of them, some of them might not be on there maybe because I forgot to like update it or something. If I downloaded it, are literally 2 clicks away. Like, I click on the folder, I click on the app, that's it. And now I think about it, that's a very cluttered way, I suppose, to organise my apps. But if anything, I guess it's kind of in the style of an East Asian website. I guess you might say it's even more in the style if I basically shrunk down the app size of every single one and then just like made them like tiny little hyperlinks to click on. But you know what I mean, basically. It's sort of just like get all the information as possible into this one screen rather than spread it out over multiple things. I don't necessarily know, you know. Maybe I need to take a closer look at all my friends' phones and how they organise the apps to see if that's actually a unique way of organising them, or if they're not. I genuinely, I feel like it is, at least from the sort of vibes I'm trying to think about. Like, I'm trying to imagine my friends' phones. But also, I think probably a lot of my friends probably don't think about the way they organise their apps all that often. I feel like a lot of them just use the app tray, to be perfectly honest, but I don't know. And I shouldn't say it without like some sort of empirical evidence to back it up. I feel like I go sort of contrary to the scientific method which I was puppeting before. But it's very interesting, isn't it? Why are Japanese websites so weird? It just end up being designed that way, hey? I didn't mean to turn on your television, but, you know, I'm just going to walk in, turn on your television and leave. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Yeah. I mean, if you know where the information is, I think it is actually quite useful to basically have everything like a one click away, because you sort of just instinctively know where to look. But if you're just like trying to mindlessly scroll, if you're not like looking for anything in particular, I feel like it is better like having it with sort of like Instagram feed, the Reddit feed, the Twitter feed sort of style, where you just have like a list of things and you just go through them, right? Because then it's sort of like, at least in my mind, the East Asian website design is like, I'm looking for something, I'm like targeting it, like if I was navigating like Wikipedia or something, because Wikipedia I guess is reasonably dense with information, although nowadays Wikipedia has also shifted to the mobile website design, which is it feels a lot more minimalist, which is interesting. But if I'm not looking for anything particular, I just like want entertainment, I suppose, then yeah, I prefer the sort of simplistic feed-esque style or Western websites. I don't know. But I think it was more interesting to think about like business designs, about like business websites tend to be very sleek in the West, you know, like you have a main page, it's got like a front like cover image of that sort of thing, you got like 3 maybe categories or something like that, but then some of them in the East Asian sites are just absolutely cluttered again at the same time, like all the information is just there. I'm not saying that's the case at all websites, because I think that's probably too strong a generalization, but it's certainly a trend, as you can see. And I don't know, it's just like website UX design in East Asia is just fascinating, I suppose, in its own right. I guess if anything, it's kind of indicative of, you know, not indicative, enlightening, I suppose, like sort of like eye-opening, like the concept of Sonder, I suppose, as well, where it's like there's whole communities which you're not privy to, I suppose, on the internet. Like, obviously, I think most people are very understanding and accepting, I'm not sure I understand, but understand the concept of the fact that, you know, there's thousands of cultures all around the world. Most of them you'll never be aware of. Like, I don't know what cultures necessarily like in like Ghana or something. Like, how does it differ? How is it similar to like British culture or something like that? I'm sure there's like people in Ghana as well who are just like, I have no idea like what life is like in the UK or something like that. Totally fair. It's just how it is, you know. There's not enough Margie, right? It's a bit difficult, I suppose, to necessarily learn about all cultures in the world and that sort of thing. And despite the fact that internet's meant to be this sort of like great unifier, like a way to connect, despite the fact you can't be in person, you know, everything on the digital world, if anything, it's the same sort of reflection in the digital world that is in the physical world, but still the same communities end up forming, like within separate like culture circles, right, which you just aren't aware of. You never know about. Like, I don't know, like what's going on in like the Spanish speaking world of the internet. Who knows? I don't, because I don't speak Spanish, so I'd end up never like seeking this stuff out in the first place. And that's kind of awesome, isn't it? All these different communities, I suppose, which can be around the place. I guess everyone's each living their own little life, and when those exchanges happen, or when you get to see peer behind the veil, I suppose, of a language incomprehensible to you, it's sort of like sharing in culture, like digitally. I guess it's cool that can happen as well. That's basically all I want to say. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to round this episode off here. Maybe I'll watch those videos again just to get reinformed, because I think they're very interesting. But if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, description, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.